Antonio Brown blitzed the Redskins defense for 126 receiving yards and 2 TDs on Monday Night Football, while Odell Beckham Jr. is preparing to play a Saints team this weekend that he lit up for 130 yards, and 3 TDs. That would be last season. Jeff Saturday still here with us.
You know it.
You know what, Jeff? I'm going to wait on you here, though. You're going to be the tiebreaker in this one because I have a feeling this is going to be an intense conversation.
Like this.
Max, let's start with you. Who got it right now, Brown or Beckham?
The answer is Odell Beckham Jr. And I realize that's not going to be a popular pick, and yes, I am a Giants fan, though this is the first time I've ever argued that a Giants player was the best at anything since Lawrence Taylor was around. Since game 1 of his career, I missed the first 4 weeks, since game 1 of his career, we've been living in the Odell Beckham Jr. era, just not everyone's aware of it. But you know what? On a deeper level, people are aware of it. That's why every time there's a popularity poll, a poll of who's the most well-known player, who sells the most jerseys, everyone else's name changes, but you know who's always up in the mix, way up by the top? Odell Beckham Jr., that ESPN poll, 100 most famous athletes in the world. It was of football, when the NFL, because a lot of soccer players, basketball players, number 1 was Cam, then Peyton, and right behind Peyton was Odell Beckham Jr., because fans know and others know that they're looking at something different. Even in this era that favors the pass, that favors the receiver, the quarterback, even in this era, with guys like not just Antonio Brown, who's putting up the most impressive numbers at the moment, for the most part, but also Julio Jones and Dez Bryant and A.J. Green and so many others, Odell Beckham is different. When you watch him, if you're honest with yourself, you know you're watching something different, which is why he's actually underrated, because people say, especially other football players love to talk about this, other receivers too, oh yeah, because of that one-handed catch. That one-handed catch is the worst thing that could have happened for his football reputation, because people like to harp on that, pretend that's the reason that he's quote-unquote overrated. Antonio Brown, when you line up since Odell's first game, remember he was suspended a game for the Josh Norman game. If you start from their first game, Antonio Brown's got 20 touchdowns. He's a beast. Odell's got 25. Now, Antonio Brown has an edge in receptions and yards. Not a tremendous edge, but he has an edge. 5 fewer touchdowns, but an edge there. But let me ask you something. Stephen A. Smith, may I call you to the witness stand?
Sure, I'm listening.
Jeff Saturday. Is there even a comparison between the Giants O-line and the Pittsburgh O-line?
No.
There's not even a comparison. No. Pittsburgh has the best, or one of the 2 or 3 best, and the Giants, their O-line has been an eyesore. It's been a major problem. They're hoping they can get it together. Do the Giants have a running back, like D'Angelo Williams even, running behind that line? No, of course, obviously. But anything like Le'Veon Bell, when he's on the field, it's not even...
When he's on the field. That's funny.
Well,
That's
the Giants can put whoever they want on the field. I'll take Le'Veon Bell for as many games as he plays over anyone the Giants have.
That's not good.
Do the Giants have a second receiver, if Cruz is not got on the field, that compares to Martavis Bryant? I know he's suspended this year, but he's been on the field. Like, offensively, and Stephen A., who has a better quarterback? Who's better, Ben Roethlisberger or Eli Manning? Didn't you both just say Ben Roethlisberger is your MVP? Wasn't I just sitting here a minute ago when you both said Ben Roethlisberger is your MVP? So playing behind a night and day better offensive line, with way better offensive players on the field, with a quarterback that you both sit here and say should be the MVP this year, and you're making fun of Eli throwing interceptions, the statistical comparison is close. Odell has an enormous advantage in touchdowns when you look at a percentage of the plays. Odell is younger, he's bigger, he's more talented, and everyone can harp on Antonio Brown's work ethic, and he deserves it. Antonio Brown is having a 3-year stretch that's like unlike any. It's ridiculous. I love Antonio Brown, and I'm glad that finally the world has caught up to my way of thinking over the last several years, which is it's Antonio Brown and Odell Beckham.
I appreciate you trying to make my argument for me, but go ahead.
Love you, Julio Jones. Love you, Dez Bryant. Love you, A.J. Green. But this world is Antonio Brown versus Odell Beckham. And I am here to tell you, if you have the choice of one or the other, it's Odell. And if you doubt it, switch teams. Put Antonio Brown on the Giants. Put Odell on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Would it even be close? I rest my case.
Actually, it would be, and Antonio Brown would win right now. Let's be clear about something here. We're talking about an Odell Beckham Jr. who's the first-round pick for the New York Giants against an Antonio Brown who was drafted 195th overall, a sixth-rounder, okay? You had to adjust to a particular system. We are talking about the last 3 years in which Antonio Brown has performed. In 2011, he had 1,108 yards. The very next year he got hurt. He was en route to another 1,000-yard season, but he got hurt and missed about 3 games. So let's take that into consideration. And then ever since then, when we say he had a 1,400-yard season, let's be clear, it was 1,499. That's a 1,500-yard season. The following year was 1,698, which is 1,700. And then last year, it was 1,834. And we saw what he did Monday night. His route running, keep in mind that he also played special teams, so he would return, he would catch punts, punt returns, kickoff returns, all of that other stuff. This dude was a dual threat, just phenomenal in every sense of the word. We also have to take into account of Big Ben Roethlisberger, that even when he has played, he has been injured because of the pounding he has taken. Let's take that into consideration. Where Eli Manning, Mr. Reliable, having missed a game in a decade, obviously, everything evolves around him. And even though the Giants' offensive line was suspect, it was particularly more so against the run than it was against the pass. Because one of the things that quickly got running backs in Tom Coughlin's doghouse was their inability to block, because he usually left them back for pass protection to ensure that Eli Manning would be able to throw the football.
They have no line.
Wait a minute. I just explained that. I'm sorry, you need to regurgitate that comment? I thought I just said that. That's why you bring people back to help. All I'm trying to say is that whatever help you needed, you kept help back there to make sure Eli could throw the football. So if Eli has been throwing the football, nobody's taking anything away from the greatness of Odell Beckham Jr. We know it's legit. We know it's big time. But at the end of the day, because we're talking about the sport of football here, unlike any other sport, you cannot minimize availability, continuity, and consistency. You can't do that. You can't dismiss that like you could dismiss it in other sports. The fact that Antonio Brown is 3 years and counting doing what he does is enough to disqualify Odell Beckham Jr. until he continues to do it. And by the way, when you sit up there, hold on, wait a minute. By the way, this is very important.
Career reward from Stephen A. Smith is usual.
By the way,
right now.
No, we are having it right now. Antonio Brown, you didn't just see him Monday night?
Yeah,
you haven't seen
behind that line with Ben Roethlisberger, I did. Single covered a lot of time. I did.
But here's the deal also. When we also talk about this, let's take this into consideration, too. When you look at Antonio Brown, you talked about Julio Jones. Let's just dismiss him. I'm sorry. The only reason you could dismiss Julio Jones from this conversation is because of Matt Ryan. You can't dismiss Julio Jones because of Julio Jones.
I love Julio Jones.
You cannot dismiss. There is nothing. Julio Jones is fresh off an 1,800
AJ Green, too.
You cannot dismiss Julio Jones from the conversation just because of Matt Ryan.
What I'm saying is that Odell Beckham in this look, there was a Jerry Rice era. You know, respects to Michael Irvin, but it was a Jerry Rice era. And I know T.O. could do more things than Randy Moss, but I'm sorry. You know it when you see it. Moss was different. And then there was Calvin Johnson, and there was a year where Andre Johnson was doing all these things, and he had proven it. You can't give it to Calvin yet. I'm sorry. If you watched Calvin Johnson, you're like, that's the guy. And what I'm telling you now is this. We are living in Odell Beckham Jr.'s era. When you put your eyeballs on that guy, you know it. And when you dig into the numbers,
don't make him better.
When you isolate the value of the player and take him off the team, I see the value of the player. It's Odell Beckham Jr.
Team Beckham, Team Brown. Jeff Saturday, break this tie for us.
All right, here's my thing. You went to O-line, so I'm going to jump on the O-line. O-line last year for Pittsburgh did not play well. Guys were banged up. They were injured.
That is correct.
They played average ball at best. Big Ben took some thumpings and some nasty shots. He played banged up half the year. Again, you want to go to touchdowns. I'm going to go your touchdowns first, right? Brown had to share touchdowns with Bryant, with Le'Veon Bell, right? So he had to do more sharing than Odell had to do last year, right? Everybody knows it's going to be Odell. Everybody knows he's going to get more shots at it because he doesn't have to disperse the ball. Eli doesn't have to disperse the ball the same way as Big Ben does. You got to keep, everybody's got to get touches, right? Everybody's got to be happy. That's what skill players do. You went to popularity, right? Popularity comes from spectacular catches, and Odell has made spectacular catches. That does not mean that is the best player at the position. The best player at the position right now is Antonio Brown. And I'll tell you why. You want to go take a short glimpse. Last week, Odell played the Cowboys. How good is the Cowboys secondary? Not
very.
Okay, compare that to the Redskins secondary. I know where everybody's torching Breland right now because of what he did. He's a good cover corner.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm trying to tell
Josh
people,
Norman, good corner, right? D'Angelo Hall, good safety. So from as far as what Antonio Brown, no Bryant, no Bell, no Heath Miller. We got a new slot in Eli Rogers, coaches in the game. Everybody knows the ball is going to go to Antonio Brown.
Can I please address that?
And he gets the ball.
Can I please address that?
And makes plays.
Can I please address that as you're going?
Address it.
That, what you said is right about Antonio Brown last week. That's why he's one of the greatest who ever did it. He's just amazing.
He is amazing.
What you just said about what applied to Antonio Brown last week applies to Odell Beckham Jr. every single week of his career, and the stats are close.
But you gave the touchdowns. You said the touchdowns in
But what I'm saying is you made all these excuses for Antonio Brown. I'm saying those excuses apply to Odell Beckham in every game he's ever played.
Without Bryant and without Bell, Brown would have more touchdowns because he's going to get fed more. It's just the natural tendency of the game to get it.
Okay, so if you want to do that,
Brown on the Giants, he would have the same numbers as Odell, if not better.
So what you're arguing
that's what I'm saying.
This is the question. This is the question.
And both are great. Both are great.
This is the question.
That's the deal.
So this is basically what you're. If you switch teams, who puts up better numbers?
Brown.
Brown puts up better numbers on the Giants than Odell does on the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yeah, because you got to share the ball on the Steelers. You're going to have to share it. Listen, Coates is going to end up getting balls this year. Rodgers is going to get balls this year.
But you just made the
Bell
argument.
Is going to get, I'm saying if
you
Odell
just made the argument that without all those other guys, it was tougher on Antonio Brown. Now you're turning around and saying it'd be easier.
If Odell goes over, I'm talking about specifically just touchdowns. Just touchdowns alone, because that was the number that you used. You said he's got 5 more touchdowns.
Eli spreads the ball around.
Not for touchdowns.
Yes, he does.
Not for touchdowns.
As a matter of fact, he missed Odell.
Odell wouldn't have as many touchdowns as he does.
He missed Odell in the end zone. Eli did this week. The next pass went to Victor Cruz.
All right. Will the new guy, will Sterling have more touchdowns? How much will it affect Odell's touchdowns this year with having the new two?
I think it will affect.
It will. It'll bring it down, right?
Maybe.
Not because Odell's not the same player. Not because he's not, in fact, better than he was last year. Because Eli will share the ball. Coverage will roll. That opening will be there. So that will happen.
If Shepard,
it's the same way.
This is what I'm saying. If Shepard can ball, Odell's numbers generally will get better, not worse. He will face every resource.
His touchdowns will go down.
But his overall numbers will be better than Antonio Brown if Shepard can ball. By the way, if he had Ben Roethlisberger throwing the ball behind that line, there'd be no question.
Listen, Eli's not a slouch.
Yeah,
don't go. Listen,
I love Eli Manning.
I do too. So it's not. We're not talking about a scrub.
You just said Ben was going to be the MVP.
He is my MVP. But I'm saying Eli is still a very capable quarterback. So it's not like you're going trash against a good one. They still both got good ones. I'm telling you, if you switch teams, Brown still has better numbers.
We disagree about that, but the argument seems to be that because Brown has more weapons, a better offensive line, and a better quarterback, according to you guys, his numbers shouldn't be as good because it has to spread it around. But when you take away those weapons from Brown, he deserves even more credit for putting up the numbers. And what I'm saying is Eli has all those weapons taken away basically on a weekly basis and still produces basically Antonio Brown numbers. They're very close. In fact, when you look at all different kinds of coverage, it's really close. But he has more touchdowns, but somehow for Eli that doesn't.
Kinds of coverage. The numbers are not there.
For Beckham, it doesn't count. How do you figure?
The numbers are not there. Antonio Brown had almost 400 yards more than Odell Beckham Jr. last year, and not to mention at least 30 more receptions.
I'm talking about against non-single coverage. Their numbers are extremely close. 26 out of 44, 24 out of 38. It's very close. In fact, Odell Beckham is targeted a little less and catches them at a slightly higher percentage.
You took your first loss of the day. Just chalk it up. Chalk it up.
This debate is so
it's hard.
good.
I know it's hard.
We're comparing two great players. That's the reality.
Listen.
Those kind of debates are what makes this show so fun.
I know he's hard-headed. It's all right. It's okay. It's all right. I'm here for you.
Of course you think
It's
you won.
still not over, though, because we want you guys to still weigh in. Who would you rather have, Antonio Brown or Odell Beckham? Go on our First Take Twitter page, vote right now. Maybe it sways back towards Mr. Kellerman. Jeff, thank you so much for being with us.
Had a blast.
Always fun. After the break.